What you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about what just happened in Venezuela. And before I dive in, if you want to stay ahead of the curve on financial events the mainstream media won't properly explain, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. You'll need this information in the coming months. 48 hours ago, the United States launched Operation Absolute Resolve, a military strike on Venezuela that resulted in the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. The official narrative? Drug trafficking, narcoterrorism, the war on cartels. But that's not what this is about. This is about silver. And I'm not talking about just any commodity play. I'm talking about a super cycle that's already begun, one that will reshape global power structures, crash paper markets, and potentially trigger a financial crisis that makes 2008 look like a warm-up. By the end of this analysis, you'll understand why China quietly locked down 121 million ounces of annual silver supply just days before the Caracas strikes. You'll see why physical silver is trading at $130 per ounce in Tokyo, while your screen shows $71. And you'll discover why Venezuela, sitting on one of the richest mining arcs on planet Earth, just became ground zero in a resource war that could define the next decade. The clock started ticking on January 1st, 2026. Let me break down what they're not telling you. January 3rd, 2026, 2 a.m. local time in Caracas. 7 massive explosions ripped through the Venezuelan capital. Over 150 U.S. aircraft participated in coordinated strikes across military installations. La Carlota Air Base, legislative buildings, military complexes. Low-flying aircraft terrorized citizens for over an hour. By dawn, President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores were in U.S. custody, extracted from their home within the Fort Tuna military installation and spirited away to New York to face narcoterrorism charges. President Trump announced to the world, "We're going to run Venezuela." The scale of this operation is staggering. 15,000 U.S. military personnel had been deployed throughout 2025, the largest U.S. military buildup in Latin America since the Cold War. This wasn't a quick strike. This was planned, rehearsed. The order to proceed came at 11:46 p.m. on January 2nd. The Trump administration has been crystal clear about their reasoning. Venezuela is a narco state. Maduro leads what they designated as a foreign terrorist organization, the Cartel of the Suns. This justifies military intervention. Since September 2025, the U.S. carried out 32 military attacks in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, resulting in at least 115 deaths. They've bombed alleged drug smuggling boats, seized oil tankers, built up naval forces off the coast of South America. The Justice Department had already indicted Maduro on cocaine trafficking conspiracy charges back in Trump's first term. Now they're making good on promises to bring him to American justice on American soil. But here's what doesn't add up. If this is about drugs, why didn't they go after Ecuador, where cocaine production is actually increasing? Why not Colombia, which produces the majority of the world's cocaine? Venezuela's drug production capabilities are relatively minor compared to other nations in the region, yet they received the full force of American military power. The timing is too precise, the execution too coordinated, and the global reaction too extreme for this to be just about narcotics. Because what happened 48 hours before the strikes reveals the real game being played. January 1st, 2026. While Americans celebrated New Year's Day, China implemented the most aggressive export restrictions on silver in modern history. Under the new framework, only 44 Chinese companies, large, state-approved firms, can export silver, and only with explicit government licenses. The requirements to qualify? An annual production capacity of at least 80 tons of silver and a minimum $30 million credit line. This effectively excludes hundreds of smaller and mid-sized exporters who have supplied global markets for decades. Here's why this matters. China controls 60 to 70% of the world's refined silver supply. Not mining, refining. They process the majority of silver that flows through global trade. With one regulatory stroke, Beijing just locked up approximately 121 million ounces of annual silver supply, roughly 3,774 metric tons, for domestic use. The global silver market has been running a deficit for 5 consecutive years. Not a surplus, a deficit. 2025 demand, 1.24 billion ounces. 2025 supply, 1.01 billion ounces. Shortfall, 230 million ounces. That's equivalent to Mexico's entire annual silver production, just missing from global supply. And now China just removed another 121 million ounces from the export market. This isn't a bull market. This is a supply shock of historic proportions. Why is China doing this? Because they're about to consume massive amounts of silver for solar panels. China installed 51% of global solar capacity growth. Each panel needs 20 grams of silver. The International Energy Agency forecasts solar capacity will quadruple by 2030. Electric vehicles. Each EV battery requires approximately 100 grams of silver. China is the world's largest EV market. AI data centers. Silver has the highest electrical conductivity of any metal. The AI boom is a silver consumption bomb. 5G infrastructure. Billions of devices, all requiring silver components. China isn't restricting silver exports because they're being mean. They're restricting exports because they can't afford to let it leave the country. Their domestic industrial machine needs every ounce. This mirrors China's playbook with rare earth elements. In 2010, China restricted rare earth exports. Prices exploded. Western nations scrambled for alternatives that took over a decade to develop. China controls 70% of rare earth mining, 90% of separation and processing, and 93% of magnet manufacturing. They used that leverage to reshape global supply chains and force Western manufacturers to build facilities in China if they wanted access to materials. Now they're doing the same thing with silver. And the United States just watched 121 million ounces of annual supply get locked behind Chinese regulatory walls, 48 hours before launching the largest military operation in Latin America since Panama. Coincidence? Not a chance. Let's talk about what Venezuela actually has underground. The Guayana Shield, a geological formation in southern Venezuela, is one of the most mineral-rich regions on Earth. We're talking about massive iron ore deposits, 14.6 million tons in estimated reserves, 4.1 billion tons proven, bauxite reserves, 5.2 million tons, gold reserves, 10,000 plus tons exploitable reserves, Latin America's largest, nickel. Venezuela claims 340 million tons, copper, significant world-class deposits, coltan, niobium, tantalum, critical for electronics, rare earth minerals, and silver deposits throughout the mining belt. Here's what the geological surveys don't shout from the rooftops. Venezuela sits on one of the richest polymetallic mining arcs in the Western Hemisphere. Silver in Venezuela isn't mined as a primary product. It's extracted as a byproduct of gold, copper, zinc, and lead mining. That's the key. Silver production can scale up massively if those base metal operations expand. Venezuela has approximately $1.36 trillion in mineral wealth according to their own government estimates. Some analysts put it even higher. Yet commercial extraction is negligible. Why? 20 years of mismanagement under Chavez and Maduro, nationalization of foreign mining operations, economic collapse, hyperinflation, political instability, corruption. The resources are there, the infrastructure not so much. But here's what matters. Those deposits don't disappear because of bad governance. The silver is still in the ground. The copper, the gold, the nickel. Venezuela's mining sector has been operating in a gray zone for years. Illegal mining, black market networks, resources flowing out through Colombia, Brazil, Guyana, Chinese firms operating under the radar. The Trump administration's narrative mentions disrupting black market flows. Think about that carefully. If you wanted to secure access to Venezuela's mineral wealth, you'd need to remove the current regime, install a friendly government, disrupt existing black market channels, many controlled by Chinese interests, and position U.S. companies to develop the mining infrastructure. The military operation accomplishes the first and third objectives immediately. The second is in progress. They're talking about Maria Corina Machado or Edmundo Gonzalez as potential leaders, though Trump seemed lukewarm about Machado. The fourth comes next. China restricts silver exports on January 1st. The U.S. strikes Venezuela on January 3rd. Venezuela holds massive undeveloped silver deposits and other critical minerals. The U.S. just positioned itself to run Venezuela. Trump's exact words. This isn't about oil. Venezuela's oil production has been in decline for years, and the U.S. has plenty of domestic production and Canadian supply. This is about minerals, critical minerals, battery metals, and most importantly right now, silver. While military jets were bombing Caracas, something even more explosive was happening in financial markets. The COMEX, the primary exchange where silver futures trade, was experiencing a delivery crisis. In late December 2025, over 60% of registered silver inventory, approximately 47.6 million ounces, was claimed for delivery in just 4 trading days. Think about that. In less than a week, more than half of the deliverable silver on the exchange was requested for physical delivery. COMEX registered inventories have plunged 70% since 2020. London vaults are down 40%. Shanghai inventories are at 10-year lows. The vaults are being drained. Here's where it gets truly insane. On your trading screen right now, silver shows around $71 to $75 per ounce. That's the paper price, the futures contracts, the derivatives, the ETFs. But in the physical market, completely different situation. As of January 2nd, 2026, Tokyo, physical silver trading at $130 per ounce. Dubai, $120 plus per ounce. Kuwait, $106 per ounce. South Korea, $97 per ounce. Some transactions in Asia reported premiums as high as 80% over the paper price. This is the largest price divergence in the history of precious metals trading. The paper market and the physical market have decoupled. They're no longer pricing the same asset. Why is this happening? Because of massive short positions held by major banks. According to the December 2nd, 2025 Commitment of Traders report, banks were net short 212 million ounces of COMEX silver futures. Rumors on social media, unconfirmed but widely discussed, suggest Bank of America, short 1 billion ounces. Citibank, short 3.4 billion ounces. For context, annual global silver production is around 800 million ounces. If those numbers are anywhere close to accurate, these banks have sold paper claims to more than 5 times the annual planetary output of silver. And now industrial buyers, semiconductor manufacturers, EV battery makers, solar panel producers are saying we don't want paper settlements. We want the physical metal. On December 30th, the CME Group issued Advisory 25-393, raising margin requirements for silver futures to $25,000 per contract. This was designed to do one thing: force liquidation of retail long positions and suppress the price long enough for banks to cover their short positions before the physical shortage becomes undeniable. It worked, temporarily. Silver crashed from $84 to the low 70s. But that paper price massacre doesn't change the physical reality. There isn't enough deliverable silver to cover the outstanding claims. What happens when the COMEX can't deliver physical silver to a commercial buyer? Who demands it? Force majeure, contract default, market breakdown. We're talking about a potential credit event at some of the largest financial institutions in the world. And this is all happening while China just locked up 121 million ounces of supply, and the US just positioned itself to control Venezuela's mineral wealth. The timing isn't coincidental. This is coordinated. Let's establish the fundamental difference. Gold equals the debasement trade. Governments print money, gold goes up. It's a monetary hedge. Silver equals the scarcity trade. Limited supply meets exploding industrial demand. It's a strategic resource. Gold ended 2025 at $4,562 per ounce, a massive gain. But silver? Silver peaked at $84 per ounce, more than doubling from its January 2025 price around $29. The gold to silver ratio has been compressing. Historically, it's averaged around 15-1 to 50-1 depending on the era. It's been as high as 120-1 in recent decades. Right now, moving back toward historical norms as the world wakes up to silver's industrial indispensability. This isn't speculation, this is math. Supply side, 5 consecutive years of deficit. 6th year deficit projected for 2026, 95 to 200 million ounce shortfall. China export restrictions, removing 121 million ounces. Mine production peaked in 2016, declining since. 71% of silver comes as byproduct of other mining. New mines take 8 to 12 years to develop, ore grades declining globally. Demand side, solar panel demand quadrupling by 2030, EV production scaling exponentially, AI data center build-out consuming massive amounts, 5G infrastructure rollout. Industrial demand in 2024, 689.1 million ounces, record high. More than half of all silver demand is industrial. The math doesn't work. You cannot consume 1.24 billion ounces per year when you only produce 1.01 billion ounces. Eventually, you run out. We're at the eventually part. Now add Venezuela to the equation. If the US successfully stabilizes Venezuela and opens up its mining sector, massive copper, zinc, lead operations come online. Silver production scales as a byproduct. US companies get preferred access. China loses a potential supply source. Western supply chains become more secure. The Venezuela operation isn't just about securing silver, it's about denying China access to future supply while positioning the US to benefit from development. It's a two-move checkmate. China restricts exports of refined silver they control. US secures access to new primary sources of unrefined silver. We're not in a bull market, we're in a supercycle. The last true silver supercycle, late 1970s, silver hit $50 per ounce in 1980, nearly $200 in today's dollars. Analysts are already calling for Citigroup, high 70s in 2026, Bank of America, $65 target. Some independents, $150 plus if the paper market breaks. But if physical markets stay decoupled and the COMEX faces delivery failures, we could see $200, $300. Price discovery breaks down when you can't buy the physical asset at any price. The smart money is moving to physical holdings, coins, bars, physically backed ETFs like PSLV, not paper ETFs, Tier 1 silver mining stocks with proven reserves, royalty companies with exposure to multiple producers. Avoid paper silver. Avoid anything that settles in cash. The whole point of the coming chaos is that cash settlements don't deliver the metal people need. So let's bring it all together. 48 hours before U.S. jets bombed Caracas, China locked down 121 million ounces of annual silver supply. The U.S. just launched the largest military operation in Latin America since the Cold War, targeting a country sitting on one of the richest mining arcs on Earth. The official narrative is drugs. The real situation is minerals: silver, copper, nickel, gold, the building blocks of the green energy transition and the AI revolution. Meanwhile, the COMEX is being drained of physical silver. Banks are potentially short billions of ounces they can't deliver. Physical prices in Asia are 80% higher than paper prices in New York. The paper market is breaking. The physical market is fracturing. And empire-level players are making moves to control the supply that remains. This isn't financial theater. This is the beginning of a commodity supercycle that will reshape global power structures. Gold is the debasement trade. Silver is the scarcity trade. Know what you hold. The Venezuela operation wasn't about Maduro. It was about positioning for what comes next. And what comes next is going to be extraordinary. If this analysis opened your eyes, smash that like button and subscribe to stay ahead of these developments. Share this with anyone who needs to understand what's really happening beneath the surface of these headlines. The great silver squeeze of 2026 has already begun. The question is, are you positioned for it?